Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also. Hello everybody, Disdonn here, and well, I don't have a lot of updates for the channel because, well, I'm going to keep uploading videos and I did most of that last week. So, being as I'm going to be putting the Storytime with Disdonn on hiatus for temporary, thanks to the last video getting flagged for monetization because it was too mature and not ad-friendly, well, we're going to do something else. And this is sort of the product of my wife collaborating with my therapist and saying that, well, I like talking about nerdy things and comics and philosophy and stuff. And, well, we're going to do this. This is going to be a test run of Disdonn's Book Club or something like that. Disdonn Reads. I don't know what the hell I'm going to call this yet. We'll figure out the name later. The point is that we are going to go over something that anybody who's nerdy should have read by now. And other things that I have to suggest for you to read. But first and foremost, something that you really should have read by now. Watchmen. Now, the movie, a lot of people may or may not have seen the movie. It got some things right. It didn't do a very good job, mostly because it was trying to do Zack Snyder-y thing of, high visual effects and bullet time and all that, or slow time and shit. But in the end, the comic still holds. And it holds a lot higher in the current day and age that we're in now. Because we're almost like we're back in the Cold War. I hate bringing up real world shit on my channel. I'm sorry if this stuff pisses you off or makes you upset. Makes me upset. But we've got a president who denies that Russia's been trying to fuck with us. And whether you believe he's in corroboration with them or not, that's the truth, is he's denying that they've done anything wrong, pretty much, and is trying to work with them to make a counter cyber terrorism unit, which is kind of dumb because they're one of the biggest cyber terrorists in the world. The other ones being China and North Korea. Less China, more Chinese money influencing North Korea. But it's like, why would these people think that it was a good idea to work together when it's like, it ain't working that well? It's pretty fucking dumb. So what we have here is a comic about heroes that are no longer heroes, that have mostly been relegated to the backlogs because they became an entity of the government. And once they were an entity of the government and helped in this alternate version of history win the Vietnam War, well, things just went sour. We wind up in a 1984 police state sort of situation. Not as bad, but it's still pretty bad, where people can't be heroes. People can't do the vigilante stuff, even though they saved the world in the past. They're relegated to day jobs and shadows. So you have people like Night Owl and Rorschach, Ozymandias, Silk Spectre, and Dr. Manhattan, all trying to find their place in this new world. And they're trying to find it and find the answers. And Rorschach in particular is trying to find the answers as to who killed the comedian. And it has a lot of philosophical elements in it. Particularly at the end of each, like when it was first released, it was a 12 issues comic. And at the end of every chapter, well, what would have been an issue, they have a little quote, either from a song or from a philosopher. And like the one that sticked out most to me when I first read it was the Nietzsche quote. Battle not with monsters, lest ye become a monster. And if you gaze into the abyss gazes also. So basically, what that Nietzsche quote is about is don't become the thing that you're trying to fight. We see this in politics all the time. People trying to be the lesser evil. People who will sacrifice their morals and their desires to do good in order to try to change things from the inside, as it were. And it happens over and over again. And it basically just winds up with our politicians becoming more and more corrupt, and us having to find new people to try and, change the system to a more fair system. It basically makes it harder and longer to get the equality in which we're trying so desperately to get for people of any race, people of any sexual orientation, women, just anybody. And it really makes me sad, because I've struggled with depression my whole life. I have family members who are have mental problems, be it like severe or just autistic. I have friends, a lot of my friends are actually on the autistic spectrum, believe it or not. Kind of surprising, but considering my brother has Asperger's, which means he's on the autistic spectrum, I'm more accustomed to dealing with people who have mild, high-functioning autism because of that. So I guess it's one of those things where you have to be exposed to things in order to fully understand it. And a lot of people who haven't been exposed to it just want to believe that they don't exist, or believe negative things and generalizations about these types of people. So basically, you've got to not do that. You have to try and be the better person. You can't gaze into the abyss for too long, because it gazes back. If you try too hard to be this pinnacle, but not actually do things about it, you wind up just surrounding yourself with all these toxic people who slowly change you into one of them. And that is a strength of will, a power of will type of struggle, good versus evil. And there is, through Nietzsche and Sartre and Camus, more Nietzsche and Sartre, because Camus is more of an absurdist than an existentialist. They believe that there is no outright good or evil. There's no a priori. Sorry if I mispronounced that, but there's no, because their assumption is God does not exist, they go at it from a purely atheist spectrum. Kierkegaard tried to do it from a religious spectrum and just wound up screwing himself, because so many verses in the Bible contradict everything that he was trying to say, that his point got lost. But in the end, it is like, you look at situations, even if you don't believe in God, you look at situations like Abraham and Isaac, where is it right for Abraham to try and kill his son Isaac based upon this being that he believes is God telling him to? Basically, do what you're told, or do what you feel is right. Because in the end, from the existentialist point of view, like, you want to try and make the decision that where you are the world, your decision is the decision that you believe everyone should make. So if you believe that you should kill your son, if you're Abraham and you should kill your son Isaac, then that means that everybody who believes that God tells them to kill somebody should do that. And that is a very dangerous road to go down. It is a very dangerous thing to believe that you must be the inaction for the world. And it's both dangerous and optimistic at the same time. It's negative and positive because you can do something that you believe is for the good of the world, like equality. And that choice, objectively speaking, on the whole, is a good choice. Or you could do the opposite, which is to promote racism, sexism, and the subjugation of other people. And by doing that, through the existentialist philosophy of you are the world, you are choosing for the world, you are trying to basically there is no predetermination. Everything you do matters. So why not do the best thing? Why not try to make the most positive impact? And there's a lot of, because these writers are from a point in time when there still was a lot less equality. A lot of these authors, like Nietzsche, was in the late 1800s after the Civil War, during the Reconstruction, and he was also in Europe. So it was pre-World War I, and there was still a lot of racism and sexism. There was still a lot of sexism and racism when Sartre and Camus were around, which was during World War II and shortly thereafter, where you have the Nazis against the Jews in Germany. They took over temporarily France during the war. They occupied France, and both Camus and Sartre were working as part of the underground rebellion unit to disperse the propaganda against the Nazis, and that was a good thing, but they did it in such a way where it reinforced a lot of negative stereotypes against the Germans and the Nazis, but at the time they believed that was what was necessary. So it's one of those things where you can look at their writing, and with historical context you can also realize that they had a lot of fallacies, a lot of cognitive dissonance within their work because of the time that they were and the things that they were doing. And that is why stuff like Watchmen, even though it came out in the 80s, Watchmen and Batman The Dark Knight Returns, those are two very influential comics as far as philosophy goes. Killing Joke is another one. I do not own Dark Knight Returns. I've had a hard time finding it when it's not like a $70 fucking super special edition hardcover when I have the money to fucking buy it. So but I've read it enough times to know that there's a lot of things, a lot of moral dilemmas within those books that applied to life, to look upon life through some of these pop culture things, to take them philosophically. Wisecracked does a lot of good stuff with their 8-bit philosophy and stuff, and philosophy of various pop cultures. It's just amazing how deep some of these things that we consume every day are, as far as like how much philosophy and just intellectual thought in general goes into it. It's insanity just how much it is. And that's why I've been struggling to produce new writing, because I feel the pressure of trying to get my message, my ideas out of my head and heart out onto the paper, and make it something that doesn't wind up like what happened with Nietzsche. He's the biggest example of work going awry. Some of the things that he said, because of the time he said them in and the way he wrote them, and also the way some of the translations from German into other languages worked, that it became and his sister, who took over his work after he died of insanity in an insane asylum, and syphilis, his sister took his legacy, took his writings, edited it in a way that it made it pro-eugenics and pro what became this Nazi socialist German party. Basically, his entire legacy is now tied so intrinsically to Nazism, even though originally it was not meant that way. It can be taken out of context. Just like the Bible can be taken out of context for a lot of these extremists that bomb and kill people at Planned Parenthood and abortion clinics. Just like a lot of other religions have their own extremists. Anything can be taken so wrongly that it can incite this negative, horrible thing. And I'm trying so desperately to write something that won't do that, or I'm hoping won't do that, because the subject I was writing on was, it was magical fiction, magical realism, where it's similar to like Heroes, the TV show, though not. It's the closest thing I can come up with to explain what happened, but people start getting the ability to harness the magical energies of the world, and a lot of them wind up becoming tools of governments and tools of philosophies that are not right. And to try and have the pro being subjugated and utilized for nefarious purposes version, and then the ones whom rebel against that, and to see which side would win in that philosophical struggle of good versus evil, even though it's not really good versus evil per se, because both sides have the same goal of the world being a better place. It's just that one is more violent and more empire-oriented, taking over other countries, utilizing this new weapon, which is not a nuclear weapon, so it's within the Geneva Convention, whatever, to basically take over and instate a new world government entity that does these things that the intent is equality, but what winds up is more akin to what happened when the socialist ideas of Karl Marx became communism, and Stalin and his ilk just completely fucked the pooch with that one and wound up killing anyone who was against them instead of actually making things fair. And then that is against the more peaceful, well, if we can find a way to live together and use our abilities to benefit humanity without doing that in the first place, like free energy, remove global warming, basically solve all the world's problems through these new abilities people have, that maybe once those problems are gone, we won't have a reason to fight, and we will find equality through that means. So basically, what I'm trying to say is look and read and think. Don't let every news article that you read be the only thing that you read. Because I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, the news media is terrible and they're all biased. You need to verify. Because we're in a place where the news media is a company, it's a corporate thing, it needs to make money, which means that it needs to have a little bit of bias, a little bit of spin. It has to be worded in just the right way to catch your attention so that you do read, so that you do buy that paper, you read that article, and they can get their ad revenue, and they can make their money and keep doing it. It's not about them explicitly trying to keep the truth from you. It's about them trying to make the money so that they stay in business. The truth is a secondary thing. There's some institutions that are a little bit better than others. Particularly, I try, if possible, to corroborate a lot of the stories that I read in the news to something from like the BBC. As much as some people would probably be like, oh God, you're going outside of America to look at, for news about America. It's, well, they're a little less biased about our politics and our effect on the world because they're not here and they don't have the agenda of trying to push one politician over the other. Not only that, but they're they're mostly state funded, just like NPR. They're state and donation fund. NPR is donation funded mostly, so they try to be a little bit more on the side of truth than others. I don't want to explicitly go out and say places you should never get your news from, but if you don't know already, well, there's a problem. And I'm not going to incite the comment backlash to tell you what to go to or not. But open your mind. Think. Read and read and read. Read things that will give you insight into the way the world works. Whether it's the world at large or it's metaphysical world. Because there's a lot of books that I have in the stack that I'm not going to even touch or talk about right now. I'm not going to talk about No Exit. I'm not going to talk about Descartes. I'm not going to talk about The Stranger or The Myth of Sisyphus or my 2 Corey Taylor books that I have here that are somewhat memoir, somewhat philosophical musings, somewhat just life skills. And, believe it or not, I'd hate for him to see this video and ever think that I'm just blowing smoke out his ass, because I don't know if he's ever read or known anything about existentialism or philosophy much. I know he's a very highly intelligent person. I know he reads a lot of comics. I know he's he speaks for himself. But what I got from some of his writings is the base thing that I get from existentialism, which is do not fear, we're all doomed. We are all fucked. Be nihilistic. Realize we're all doomed. We're all going to die. Now what are you going to do with the life you have? There's no afterlife. You get one shot. Do not miss your chance to blow. What are you going to do? And that is where I'm going to leave it for now. But pick up Watchmen. Digital, hardcover, softcover. It's everywhere. It's perennially printed. It's reprinted over and over again. It is the best Alan Moore book, period. Some of his other works get a little bit more into the political part of things, like V for Vendetta. But this is overall the best philosophical comic treatise that you can utilize for the wide range of good, bad, ugly of the world. And how do not let the ends justify the means. Do not use people as an end to your means. Because the world's gray and gritty and dirty enough as it is. Don't be Rorschach. Don't be Ozymandias. Find your medium. Find where you belong. And with that, thank you guys for watching. This has been Disdonn. Kind of doing a little bit of a book club philosophical treatise thing. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Pick up Watchmen. Read. Think critically. I'll catch you in the next one whenever I decide to talk about stuff again. I will probably talk about No Exit next time. Because hell is other people. And take of that what you will until next time. I'll see you then.